Good morning. So, Watchtower and Shunning. Shunning those who have been abused shows a lack of insight, a lack of wisdom, and worst of all, a lack of love. Now, Jesus gave his disciples a lesson in not shunning, and it's in John chapter 4. And what had happened was that Jesus and the disciples were on their way back to Galilee from Judea. So they were walking, and they stopped at a Samaritan village. Now, the Samaritans were apostates. They were a mixed race of Jews and some of the people that had been brought in from Babylon when Babylon destroyed Jerusalem. I beg your pardon, Samaria. So the Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans whatsoever. So they came to this town, and they came to Jacob's well, and Jesus was tired, so he just sat down as he was beside the well, and it was midday. The disciples went off to buy foodstuffs. Now, I've puzzled sometimes about why it was that Jesus was so tired and the disciples were able to go and buy food. And I believe it's because Jesus had been teaching constantly. His ministry was going to be short, so he had to think about what he was going to tell people to the best effect. And it's tiring. All the disciples had to do was listen and hopefully learn. But anyway, here they are. Here's Jesus beside the well. And a woman comes out. Now, the fact that she's a woman doesn't matter too much, either to the woman or to Jesus. And he says to her, would she give him a drink? And she says, you're a Jew and you ask me, a Samaritan, for a drink? And Jesus went on to say, well, he said, if you knew who I was, you would be asking me for water. And she's puzzled about this. And the reason Jesus would speak to her, a Samaritan, was most odd. But she goes on and she says, but you don't have a bucket, sir, and this well is very deep. You can't just dip your cup in and pick up water. And Jesus goes on to say to her, whoever drinks this water will get thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I shall give him will, what does he say? He will never be thirsty again. And the water that I shall give him will turn into a spring inside him, welling up to eternal life. So she wanted this water, of course she did. Now, he said to her, right, go and get your husband. And she said, I don't have a husband. And he said, well, you're right there, because you've had 5 partners, and the man that you have now is not your husband. And she said, I perceive that you are a prophet. Now, something had been bothering her most of her life. And she said to Jesus, look, we Samaritans believe that you should worship God in Mount Gerizim, but you Jews say that you should worship God at Jerusalem. So which of us is right? So Jesus went on to say to her, it doesn't matter where you are, it's how you worship God that's the important thing. You need to worship him with spirit and truth. Now, she was amazed. She said, I perceive, well, that you are a prophet, but also, she said, I know that Messiah is coming. Now, the Samaritans had the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, so she knew the Messiah was coming. And Jesus said to her outspokenly, well, I'm the Messiah. So she drops the bucket, runs back into town and tells everybody what has happened, and they all come out to see for themselves. By this time, the disciples have come back with food, and they're astonished that Jesus is talking to a Samaritan, and not only that, but he's talking to a woman. Anyway, the townspeople come out and they talk to Jesus, and they persuade Jesus to stay for a couple of days. And at the end of those 2 days, the disciples are in no doubt that you do not shun Samaritans. It's a good lesson for all of us. The first lesson we have from Jesus Christ is that of love for everybody. So I'm just going to give you a couple of quotes from Barclay. Here we are again. I'll tell you about Barclay sometime, but just for the moment, he's talking about the love being the atmosphere of the Christian life. He says, a church where there is bitterness and strife can call itself a church of men, but it has no right to call itself a church of Christ. He goes on to say that the Christian love goes out to the brotherhood. A church completely enveloped in the peace of mutual love is a rare phenomenon. Such a church would not be a church where everyone thought the same and agreed on everything. It would be a church in which men could differ and still love each other. Watchtower falls down on the first principles of Christianity, to love those who have been abused and to help them out. Anyway, we'll carry this on another time. Thank you for watching this morning.